Today, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the world of deep work.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
And we're going to be using Cal Newport's book, the same name. So basically what we want to do is kind of explore, what is deep work, right? Why is it like so important in this day and age?
right.
And how can we, like actually harness the power of it to like achieve better things, achieve extraordinary things.
Yeah, it's almost like a superpower, right? Like especially in this world that's so obsessed with distractions.
Right.
It's-
Yeah, like everybody's running around,
yeah,
like multitasking, trying to do like a million things at once.
right.
And this is like the exact opposite, right? This
Yeah.
is like stepping back from all that, focusing on one thing with
Yes.
laser-like intensity.
Imagine trying to build like a sandcastle, right?
Okay.
But like there's all this wind
Uh-huh.
blowing sand everywhere and you're trying to like build this really intricate thing.
Right, yeah. That wind is like all the distractions, right? The emails, social media,
So
all the notifications.
you can't build a good sandcastle when you're constantly being bombarded by all this stuff. So you need to like find that sheltered spot,
Right.
that place where the wind can't reach you. And then you can really build something beautiful and strong.
So deep work is kind of like finding that sheltered spot, that mental space
Yeah.
where you can just shut everything out
Yes, creating those conditions for focus.
and just focus on the task at hand.
Mhm.
And I imagine, like in today's world, that ability to focus deeply is becoming even more and more valuable.
Absolutely, because you think about it, like machines are getting really good at a lot of things these days. They're
Yeah.
getting good at processing information, automating tasks, even learning and adapting.
Right.
But what they're not good at is thinking deeply,
Right.
thinking creatively, thinking strategically.
So are those like the skills that will like set us apart? The skills that machines like can't replicate?
Precisely. It's those skills, being able to solve complex problems, come up with innovative ideas, connecting different concepts in ways that have never been connected before
Right.
to create new things. Those are the things that require deep work, and those are the things that will make you indispensable in the age of automation.
It's almost like a form of rebellion, right?
Yes.
Against the shallowness of the digital world.
It is. It's like reclaiming your attention, reclaiming your focus, reclaiming your ability to think deeply and creatively.
So how do we even cultivate that?
Right.
Like to actually focus deeply. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh yeah, deep work is valuable.
Right.
But how do we actually like,
How do we actually do it?
yeah, do it, implement it?
Well, I think one of the most important things is to realize that deep work is a skill. And like any skill, it takes practice, right? It's like learning to play a musical instrument or mastering a sport.
Okay, so it's not going to happen overnight.
No.
You need to be patient with it.
Absolutely. And just like with any skill, there are different levels of mastery, right? So some people might be able to sit down and focus intensely for hours at a time,
Right.
but others might only be able to manage, shorter bursts of concentration.
So you have to like find what works for you,
Exactly.
for your own like capabilities and your own circumstances.
Exactly. And the key is to kind of gradually like push yourself to extend those limits. Like training for a marathon. You're not going to run 26 miles on your first day.
Right.
You're going to start small. You're going to gradually increase your mileage over time.
Yeah, you need to approach deep work with that same kind of patience and discipline.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people are probably wondering, are there any examples, like people who have achieved remarkable things through deep work, people who can like serve as role models or,
Oh, it's
an
inspiration.
Yeah, I mean, like, one that comes to mind immediately is the Wright brothers.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wilbur and Orville, right. Bicycle mechanics from Ohio. No formal training in aeronautics whatsoever.
Uh-huh.
And yet they managed to achieve what was considered impossible at the time, powered flight.
It's crazy to think that they did that without, the technology and resources we have today.
Precisely. And what set them apart was not just their mechanical skills, but their relentless focus and dedication. They spent years studying bird flight, experimenting with different designs, meticulously testing and refining their prototypes. They were completely immersed in their work, shutting out the doubts and distractions of the world around them.
So they kind of created like their own little world of deep work, their own
Yes.
sheltered spot where they could just focus on their dream
Exactly.
without being swayed by, whatever the prevailing wisdom was at the time.
They weren't afraid to challenge the status quo, think differently,
Yeah.
pursue their vision with unwavering focus, and in doing so, they changed the world forever.
It's a good example of how it's not just about productivity or efficiency. It's about like
Right.
unlocking your potential, achieving things that at first glance might seem
Absolutely.
great.
It's about tapping into a level of focus and creativity that you might not even know you possess.
Yeah.
And recognizing that those moments of deep work, those moments of intense concentration and flow, those are often the most rewarding and fulfilling moments of our lives.
So it's not just about getting things done. It's about like, a deeper level of engagement with your work, with your passions, with, the world around you.
And that's what makes it so compelling, right? It's not just a productivity hack, it's a pathway to a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
So what about like other examples? I mean, are there other people who have achieved, remarkable things through deep work? Maybe people who aren't as well known as the Wright brothers.
Sure, yeah. Well, J.K. Rowling comes to mind,
Oh, yeah.
the author of the Harry Potter series.
I mean, talk about going from like a struggling single mother to one of the most
Yes.
successful authors of all time.
Exactly. And it all started with a simple idea, a
Okay.
story about a boy wizard named Harry Potter. And she spent years working on that story, writing in cafes, libraries,
Wow.
often while her daughter napped beside her.
It's crazy to think that like those iconic books that like captured the imagination of millions of people around the world
Yes.
started in those quiet, focused moments.
Right, and what's even more remarkable is she faced numerous rejections from publishers
Oh, wow.
before finally finding someone who believed in her vision.
It's a real testament to, her perseverance and her belief in her work and her ability to stay focused, even when the world around her was like, no.
Yeah, she didn't let the rejections or the challenges deter her. She kept writing, she kept refining her story, she kept believing in the power of her imagination. And in doing so, she created a world that has brought joy and wonder to countless readers.
Right, like the impact of Harry Potter on popular culture, on literacy, the way we think about, magic and imagination.
It's incredible.
It's crazy. It all started from those quiet, focused moments where she just shut out the world and like
Yes.
immersed herself in the world of her creation.
Precisely.
Are there any other examples of people who have used deep work to achieve that kind of success in different fields, maybe?
Let's take music, right? The Beatles.
Okay.
Arguably one of the most influential bands of all time. And they spent countless hours honing their craft, in the clubs of Hamburg, Germany.
Yeah, I've heard stories about how they would just play for hours on end,
Oh, yeah.
night after night, just refining their sound, experimenting with different ideas.
They weren't afraid to put in the time, to push themselves to their limits, to embrace the grueling work of becoming master musicians. And it was during those long, intense jam sessions that their signature sound began to emerge, the sound that would eventually captivate the world.
It's like they were forging their musical identity in the crucible of deep work.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. They weren't just playing music, they were creating something new, something unique, something that had never been heard before.
Yeah.
And they did it through sheer hard work, dedication, and focus.
It's a good reminder that it's not always about sitting at a desk, staring at a computer screen.
Right.
Deep work can take many forms.
Deep work is about finding those optimal conditions for focus and creativity.
Right.
Whatever those conditions might be. For the Beatles, it was those long nights in
Yeah.
Hamburg. But for a writer, it might be a quiet room with a notebook and pen. For a scientist, it might be a lab filled with, complicated equipment. It's about figuring out what those environments and rituals are that allow you to enter that state of deep focus, that state where you can do your best work.
So it's like finding the key
Yes.
that unlocks your
Precisely.
creative potential.
And once you find that key, once you discover those conditions that allow you to work deeply, you can unlock a level of productivity and creativity and fulfillment that you never thought possible.
This is all super inspiring, but how do we get started?
Right.
I mean, it's one thing to admire these people and their achievements,
Yeah.
but how do we actually like apply these principles to our own lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's something that we're going to be exploring in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
But
Before we move on, though, I want to touch on something you said earlier about like deep work being a pathway to like a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
yes.
Can you like elaborate on that a bit? Like, how does it actually connect to like that sense of meaning and purpose?
Well, it's about aligning your actions with your values, right? It's about dedicating your time and energy to things that truly matter to you. And in a world that's constantly trying to pull you in a million different directions, deep work allows you to reclaim your attention and focus on what's truly important.
So it's about resisting the temptation to like chase after like every shiny object,
Yeah,
every, fleeting distraction, right?
exactly.
And instead choosing to like invest your energy in something that actually has real value.
If you think about your life as a garden, right? Deep work is like tending to the most precious plants, the ones that bring you the most joy and nourishment.
So it's about nurturing those aspects of your life that are most meaningful, the things that bring you a sense of purpose.
Yes. And recognizing that those things take time and attention and dedication to flourish.
So just like a garden needs to be watered and weeded, you have to put in the
Not to put
work
them in the work.
to cultivate your passions, to cultivate your purpose.
Absolutely.
And it makes me think about how, deep work can help us connect with like a deeper sense of ourselves, right? Connect with our talents, our passions.
Yes. Deep work is about tapping into your inner potential.
Yeah.
It's about discovering what you're truly capable of when you focus your mind
Right.
and dedicate yourself to something meaningful. It's about pushing beyond the distractions and limitations of the world around you
Right.
and connecting with that inner source of creativity and inspiration.
So it's not just about, achieving success in the outside world. It's about
Right.
cultivating a deeper sense of like inner fulfillment.
And that's what makes it so powerful, right? It's not just a productivity hack. It's a pathway to a more meaningful and fulfilling life.
Mhm.
A life that is aligned with your values, your passions, your deepest aspirations.
Yeah, that's a powerful thought. Makes me even more excited to get into those practical strategies for implementing it.
Right.
But I think we'll save that for our next segment. We've covered a lot today. We've talked about the nature of deep work, its importance, its connection to a more meaningful life. I'm already feeling inspired to like reclaim my attention and focus on what truly matters.
That's fantastic. I can't wait to share some of those practical tips and strategies that will help you harness the power of deep work in your own life.
All right, so we talked about like the why of deep work, like why it's so powerful, why it's so relevant, how it can, unlock a more fulfilling life. But now let's get practical.
Yeah.
Like, how do we actually do it? How do we cultivate this deep work muscle?
Right. In a world that's like designed to distract us.
Yeah, it's like trying to meditate in a hurricane.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the good news is you don't have to like become a monk and retreat to a mountaintop. It's about, building small sustainable habits,
Yeah.
things that gradually shift our relationship with focus.
So it's less about like drastic overhauls and more about
Yes.
like subtle, consistent shifts. I like that. Makes it seem a little less daunting, right?
Yeah.
So where do we start?
Well, one powerful approach is to start by just noticing your distractions. It's like becoming a detective of your own attention. Like, what actually pulls you away from what you're trying to do? Is it the ping of a notification? Is it the urge to check social media? Is it the siren call of your inbox?
Oh, the inbox. That's a big one for me. Feels like a never-ending game of whack-a-mole.
It's a very common struggle, but by just becoming aware of those distractions, by noticing how often they interrupt your flow, you start to gain a sense of control.
It's like shining a light on these like unconscious habits that are hijacking our attention.
Once we've identified those distractions, then we can start to implement strategies for managing them.
Right.
It might be something as simple as turning off notifications, setting specific times for checking email, or even using like website blockers.
Right. So it's about creating boundaries, right?
Yeah.
Both physical and digital.
Exactly. Like, think of it as building a fortress around your attention, a place where you can work deeply without being constantly bombarded by distractions.
I love that. It feels very empowering, right? Like you're taking back control of your time and attention.
Yes.
But what about those times where distractions are kind of unavoidable? Like if you're in a meeting or if you're working in a busy office.
That's where the power of ritual comes in. Creating rituals around your deep work can help signal to your brain that it's time to shift into focus mode.
Okay, so what kind of rituals are we talking about?
It could be something as simple as like making a cup of tea or lighting a candle, putting on noise-canceling headphones, or even just taking a few deep breaths to clear your mind.
So it's like creating a sense of intentionality, right? Like a
Yes.
shift in mindset.
Exactly. Think about it like an athlete preparing for a competition, right? They have their warm-up routines that help them get in the zone to focus
Mhm.
their mind and body on the task at hand.
So we're creating our own mental warm-up routines for deep work.
Exactly. And those rituals, they can be really powerful because over time, they become associated with deep work. And simply engaging in those rituals can start to trigger a state of focus and concentration.
So it's like training your brain to associate certain cues with deep work.
Yes. And the more you practice those rituals, the more automatic that association becomes. It's like building a muscle memory for focus.
I like that. So it makes it feel more attainable, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
like it's something you can actually train yourself to do.
Yeah.
What about for people who struggle with like actually staying focused once they've created the space, they've set the intention, but like their mind still wanders?
Right, right. That's a common challenge, and that's where the concept of mindfulness comes in.
Okay, I've heard a lot about mindfulness, but like I'm not sure I fully understand how it relates to deep work.
Mindfulness is about cultivating a state of present moment awareness. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings without judgment. And it's really helpful for deep work because it allows you to become aware of when your mind is starting to wander.
So it's like an internal alarm system that
Yes.
like goes off when you're getting distracted.
Exactly. And then instead of getting frustrated or judging yourself for getting distracted, you simply notice those thoughts. You gently guide your attention back to the task at hand and you continue working.
It sounds simple, but I imagine it takes practice.
It does, it does. But like any skill, mindfulness is something that can be developed over time. There are a lot of different techniques like meditation, yoga, or even just taking a few moments throughout the day to focus on your breath and notice the sensations in your body.
So it's about training your mind to be more aware of the present moment, to notice when your attention is drifting, and then gently guide it back.
Exactly. And the more you practice mindfulness, the better you'll become at catching those distractions early on before they have a chance to really derail your focus.
So like we're building a mental muscle for attentional control.
Exactly. And that muscle, just like any other muscle, can be strengthened with practice.
This is all really helpful, but I'm curious about something. So we've talked a lot about the benefits of deep work, how it can help you achieve your goals, enhance your creativity, live a more fulfilling life. But are there any downsides? Is it possible to have too much of a good thing?
That's a great question. And it's important to acknowledge that like anything else, deep work can be taken to an extreme. If you become so obsessed with focus and productivity that you neglect other important aspects of your life, then it can become problematic.
So it's about finding a balance, right?
Yes, absolutely.
A balance between deep work and the other essential elements of a fulfilling life.
Mm.
Relationships, relaxation, play.
Exactly. Deep work is a powerful tool, but it's just one tool in your toolbox. You need to use it wisely in conjunction with other tools to create a life that is both productive and fulfilling.
So it's not about like becoming a workaholic
Right.
or shutting yourself off from the world. It's about integrating it into your life in a way that supports your overall well-being.
Exactly. Think of it like a balanced diet. You need a variety of nutrients to thrive. You can't just focus on one food group to the exclusion of all others. Similarly, you need a variety of activities and experiences to nourish your mind, your body, and your soul.
So finding that sweet
Mhm.
spot, right? That balance between focus and flexibility, work and play, solitude and connection.
Exactly. And that balance might look different for everyone.
Yeah.
The key is to listen to your own needs, to pay attention to the signals your body and mind are sending you, and adjust your approach accordingly.
So be mindful not just of your work, but of your overall well-being.
Absolutely. And recognize that deep work, at its core, is about creating the conditions for you to thrive, both personally and professionally.
So this is all making a lot of sense, but I think a lot of people listening might be thinking, okay, but how do I actually implement this in my day-to-day life? I mean, it's one thing to talk about mindfulness and rituals and boundaries, but it's another thing to actually put those concepts into practice.
That's a great point. And that's actually what we'll be exploring in more detail in the next part of our deep dive. We'll be talking about specific strategies for scheduling deep work, for managing distractions, for cultivating focus.
I can't wait. I'm already feeling inspired to start implementing some of these ideas.
I'm glad to hear that. And I think you'll be surprised at how even small changes can make a big difference in your ability to focus and achieve your goals. But for now, let's take a pause and reflect on what we've discussed so far. What are some of the key takeaways that are resonating with you?
One thing that really stands out for me is just the idea that deep work is a skill that can be developed over time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not something that you're either born with or not.
Right.
We can all learn to focus more deeply and achieve extraordinary results.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that even those who seem to effortlessly achieve great things through deep work, you know, they've likely spent years honing their craft and developing their ability to focus.
Yeah. It's a good reminder to not get discouraged, if we don't see results immediately. It's a process, right? It's a journey.
It's a journey of
And
continuous improvement.
yeah, another key takeaway for me is just the importance of mindfulness. It's not just about sitting on a cushion and meditating. It's about, cultivating a state of present moment awareness that you can bring to all aspects of your life,
Yes, including your work.
including your work. Exactly.
Mhm.
It's such a powerful tool for deep work, because it allows you to be aware of when your mind is wandering
Yeah.
and to gently guide your attention back. It's like having an internal compass, right?
Yes.
That helps you stay on track and avoid getting lost in the sea of distractions.
And it's a skill that you can develop through consistent practice.
And I also love the idea of, creating rituals around deep work. Like, it's almost like a way of signaling to your brain that, hey, it's time to shift into focus mode.
Yes, those rituals can be so powerful. They help you create a sense of intentionality and prepare your mind and body for the task at hand.
It's like putting on your mental game face.
Exactly. And those rituals can be as simple or as elaborate as you want them to be. The key is to find what works for you and make them a consistent part of your deep work routine.
I'm already starting to think about some rituals I could incorporate into my own workday.
Okay.
I'm excited to experiment and see what helps me focus more deeply.
That's great. And remember, it's all about finding what works best for you. There's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So it's about being curious, right?
Yeah,
Experimenting and finding what helps you tap into your own unique flow state.
absolutely. And being patient with yourself, recognizing that it takes time and practice to develop those skills and habits.
This has been such an enlightening conversation. Like, I feel like I'm starting to understand not just the what and the why of deep work, but the how.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I can't wait to delve even deeper into those practical strategies in our next segment. We'll talk about specific techniques for scheduling deep work, managing distractions, and cultivating focus.
I'm really looking forward to it. I feel like we're building a solid foundation here, right?
Yeah.
For unlocking the power of deep work and using it to create more meaningful and fulfilling lives.
Absolutely.
All right, so I'm ready. Let's roll up our sleeves and get into the nitty-gritty here. Like, how do we actually implement this? What are some actionable strategies that we can use, like starting today to carve out more time for deep work and make it a consistent part of our lives?
Well, I think a fundamental shift is to stop thinking about it as hoping for these pockets of focus to magically appear and start treating deep work like an important appointment. Like schedule it.
Okay, so no more passively waiting for the stars to align and these moments of peace and quiet just to magically
Yeah.
appear. We're being proactive.
Be proactive. Look at your week ahead.
But
Block off specific times for deep work, just like you would for a meeting or a doctor's appointment.
that does take a lot of discipline and
Mhm.
and planning though, right?
It does, but think about it this way. If you had a meeting with a VIP client, you wouldn't just hope to find a spare moment in your day to squeeze them in.
Right, right.
You would carefully schedule it and protect that time.
Yeah. We tend to prioritize those external commitments
Yeah.
over our own internal work.
Deep work is essentially a meeting with your most important client, yourself.
Okay.
And it deserves the same level of respect.
I like that. So we're scheduling these meetings with ourselves. How do we decide how much time? Because everybody's schedule is different, capacity is different.
Yeah, start with what feels manageable for you. It could be as little as 30 minutes a day, or even just a couple of hours a week.
Okay.
The key is consistency. It's much better to start small and gradually increase your deep work time than to try to do too much too soon and burn out.
So it's like any new habit. You got
Yeah.
to start small, stay consistent, gradually ramp up.
And as you become more comfortable with deep work, you can experiment with different scheduling strategies. Some people find it helpful to block off entire mornings or afternoons,
Right.
while others prefer to kind of sprinkle shorter, deep work sessions throughout the day.
So find what works for you and your own rhythms and preferences.
Exactly. And be flexible. Some days you might have more time for deep work than others, but the key is to try to make it a regular part of your routine, even if it's just for, short bursts of time.
All this makes sense in theory, but, you know, life happens, right? Like you have unexpected interruptions, urgent deadlines, family commitments. It can be really hard to stick to a deep work schedule when all these things are kind of vying for your attention.
Think of distractions as waves. They're going to come no matter how hard you try to avoid them. The key is to learn how to ride those waves without getting swept away.
Okay, so instead of trying to like build a dam to hold back the water,
Yes.
we're learning to surf.
You're learning to surf. It's about developing a mindset of acceptance and resilience.
Okay.
When distractions arise, acknowledge them. Maybe jot them down on a distraction list to address later, and then gently redirect your attention back to the task at hand.
So it's like that mindfulness practice again, right? Like
Yeah.
noticing the distraction without judgment and then returning to the present moment.
And you're not going to be perfect at this. There will be times when you get completely swept away by the wave. The key is to not beat yourself up about it. Simply acknowledge what happened, reset, and start again.
Progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And over time, as you become more skilled at managing distractions, you'll find that you're able to stay focused for longer periods of time.
So we've talked about like scheduling deep work and managing distractions. What about the work itself? Like not all tasks are created equal.
Right.
Some tasks are just like better suited for deep work.
Right. It's helpful to think about tasks in terms of their cognitive demand. Some tasks, like, responding to emails or scheduling appointments, they require relatively low cognitive effort. You can do them on autopilot without much mental strain.
So those are the things you can kind of like handle even when you're not feeling super
Right.
focused.
Exactly. But other tasks, like writing a report or developing a strategy or solving a complex problem, those require much higher levels of cognitive engagement.
So those are the ones that really benefit from those deep work sessions.
Those are the tasks that benefit most from deep work.
So it's about identifying those tasks that really require your full mental bandwidth that you can't just like phone in.
Exactly. And it's about being strategic about when you tackle those tasks. Schedule those high cognitive demand tasks for your deep work sessions when your mind is fresh and your energy levels are high.
So you're like matching the task to your mental state.
Exactly. It's like a golfer choosing the right club for the shot. You wouldn't use a putter to drive the ball off the tee. Similarly, you don't want to try to tackle a complex problem when your mind is tired and your focus is scattered.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about those times when you have a task that requires deep work, but you're just not feeling it?
Yeah.
We all have those days where like our focus is just elusive and we're not feeling motivated. How do we push through that and get into the zone?
It's helpful to remember that motivation often follows action.
Okay.
We don't have to wait for inspiration to strike before we start working. Sometimes simply starting the task, even if it's just for a few minutes, can be enough to kind of jumpstart your focus and get you into the flow.
So you got to overcome that initial inertia,
Yes,
that
exactly.
resistance to getting started.
Think of it like pushing a heavy object.
Okay.
Takes a lot of effort to get it moving at first,
Uh-huh.
but once it's rolling, it becomes much easier to keep it going.
So we just got to like generate that initial momentum.
Exactly. And there are different strategies for doing that. One is to break down large, daunting tasks into smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay. So instead of just staring at like a blank page and
Yeah.
feeling completely overwhelmed, you're creating like a series of smaller goals.
Exactly. And as you complete each step, you get a sense of accomplishment, which kind of boosts your motivation and helps you stay on track.
So it's like building a staircase to your goal,
That's a great analogy.
one step at a
And
time.
another strategy is to use a timer. Set a timer for 25 minutes and just commit to working on the task without distractions for that entire time.
So you're like creating a mini deadline for yourself.
Exactly. And often you'll find that once that timer goes off, you're so engrossed in the task that you want to keep going.
Like you've tricked your brain into focusing.
Yes, in a way. By committing to a short burst of focus effort, you often overcome that initial resistance and tap into a state of flow.
This has been like super helpful. I feel like I have a much better understanding now of how to approach deep work, both practically and mentally. But before we wrap up, I'm kind of curious about the bigger picture here. We've talked about how deep work can help us achieve our goals, live more fulfilling lives. But what role do you think it plays in shaping a better world? I mean, we're facing some pretty complex challenges these days. Climate change, social injustice, political polarization. Can deep work help us address those things?
I think deep work has a crucial role to play in shaping a better future. The challenges we face today require innovative solutions, creative thinking, and a deep understanding of complex systems. And those are precisely the qualities that deep work cultivates.
So it's about like moving beyond the superficial, the reactive, the quick fixes,
Right?
and really engaging with these issues on a deeper level.
Deep work allows us to slow down, to step back from the noise and distractions of the world, and to really grapple with the complexities of these challenges.
It's about fostering a culture of like thoughtfulness and deliberation and depth.
Exactly. And it's about empowering individuals to tap into their own unique talents and perspectives to contribute to solutions.
So deep work is not just about like personal productivity, it's about creating a ripple effect
Yes,
that extends outward and influences, the way we approach problems, the way we interact with each other, the way we shape the world around us.
I believe that's true. Deep work is a powerful tool for personal transformation, but it also has the potential to transform our communities, our societies, and ultimately our world.
This has been such an inspiring conversation. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of the power of deep work. Not just as a productivity hack, but as a pathway to a more meaningful life, both for ourselves and for the world around us.
I'm so glad to hear that, and I hope our listeners feel empowered to embrace deep work and discover the incredible potential that lies within them.
I have no doubt they will. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Deep Dive. Until next time, keep diving deep.